being a gay person, openly gay person from China is never easy. You have to be pretty desperate to commit suicide.
You put all your investment there without aware of the cultural issue.
I developed something I loved and I thought was beautiful, but I'm in hospital. My insurance didn't work because China had never seen health insurance. But I misjudged two things.
So Chris, you are my many years of friends, but you came today, gave me a shocking news of our mutual friends, a gay couple. They blew up their brain together. It's so shocking. I mean, you are their neighbor.
Yeah.
We hang out all the time. I still remember, he teach me how to put the proper lipsticks on, which is still I haven't.
Yeah.
As a friend, as a neighbor, can you not tell anything about their mental health?
Well, they used to come onto the Muse and see us regularly, but Digby and Liu Wei used to. It was Tom and Richard that lived opposite, and Digby and Liu Wei used to live in Mayfair. Very successful in the art world, successful couple, lovely people.
Yes.
And as you say, they used to come to a lot of our parties in the Muse,
together.
and we had barbecues. And no, it was Digby was a close friend, confidant, and also taught me a lot about business in the UK. When I first came back here, became a very close friend. My experiences of starting my own businesses were always overseas at that time.
Yes.
So it was quite interesting that what I believe is a very, very successful, incredibly happy couple, suddenly everything changes overnight.
But you said that's after investigation, you just said that it's a Chinese, our Yuan started to see that's the psychiatrist and then psychologist. Is that what
he was, Liu Wei was always a little bit troubled. Being a gay person, openly gay person from China is never easy. We have a few Chinese gay friends.
Very challenging.
It's very challenging. Family disown you a little bit, and they never come to real terms with getting back close to their family, even when the family may have accepted or have knowledge of it. But when you combine all that, I suppose, emotional burden with maybe, we found out later, a little bit of financial burden, it just took them over the edge. They were always a couple also that were high profile, always seemed to be incredibly successful. And when you're put on that sort of pedestal as well, what I find is people then find it really difficult to admit that they're failing. And obviously Digby was failing. His finances were being squeezed, and he was the only earner because Liu Wei was like a traditional wife, somebody that looked after the home, looked after the dog. So I suppose it just became too much of a burden for both of them. But to put yourself in that mindset is very difficult. I think you have to be pretty desperate to commit suicide, and to premeditate it, which it seems like it was premeditated, is even harder to understand. I mean, the thought of harming yourself is quite difficult to grasp, but to sit opposite somebody you love and decide to take your own lives at the same time is quite, I don't know, it's somewhere I can't put my head into that situation. I can't, and I still don't. It's now nearly 2 years, and yeah, I still think about them a lot, and I know Shirley does as well. But yeah, you have to move on and just remember the good thing. I try and forget that they may have had problems. I just remember all the good times.
Wow. So, yeah, mental health. There was an interview I did before so a senior level to openly discuss about his depression, and then his friends commit suicide. So we advocate like even one conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That can save a life. I mean, I know like our Chinese gay friends like had some issues with psychological issues. He has seen doctors, but if as a close friends or families, from this perspective, the conversation might change because the function going to be different from what the doctor
I think that the most important thing for anybody is to trust your friends, be open with your friends, tell your friends. A conversation about an issue is getting it off your chest. For me, anything that is bothering you, both physically, mentally, you should be able to tell somebody. Because we go through, especially, I mean, we talk about successful people, we talk about CEOs, we talk about high performing adults. The biggest problem they have is they're put on pedestals. They can't take their problems home. They can't talk to their staff. So what happens is they tend to bottle all this inside. And that's the worst thing you can do, because it just percolates the problem. It gets the problem even worse. I'm a pure advocate that everybody should be able to talk about their day-to-day issues, even if it's only once a month. Get together around friends and just openly talk about what has bothered you. Don't always talk about, hey, I've had a great month and whatever. Like, nobody has a total 100% fantastic time. We all have to deal with certain issues, especially in business. Running a business is difficult. It's stressful. We take the burden of all of our employees. We take the burden of everybody. And I think it's really important that you have the opportunity to unload or talk about it. And sharing a problem halves a problem. So maybe that person can't help, but can introduce you to somebody that can.
Yeah.
So to avoid you feeling alone and with no support.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And also, there's no stigma attached these days if you talk about what I would call mindful issues, as in stress, day-to-day life, all these things. There's no stigma around mental health these days. I prefer not to use the word mental health because it gives this image that you're mentally ill.
Yeah, mentally ill, yeah.
But both of us on a day-to-day basis have to deal with things sometimes that just stresses us out, makes us feel uncomfortable, feeling, tired. We need to have somebody to talk to. Now, if your partner's a business person, maybe they understand, but it's better to do it with a friend rather than somebody really close to you as a husband or wife, because that automatically has a different reaction to a friend. A friend will always has two ears, two eyes, one mouth for a reason. They will listen and they'll hear you rather than trying to give you a response. Because that's the last thing you also want, is somebody trying to tell you what to do. And if it's a family member or a partner, so generally
they're hard not to take any side.
It's hard not for them to give you advice.
Yeah.
Whereas friends and professionals will never give you advice. Yeah. They will just listen.
Also, friends will give you the advice. I mean, it's about professionals they won't. Yeah. But it's still like the angle is like sharper than the husband or wife, which is to tell you or give you the advice. Yeah. Chris, I want to mention something in this our gay couple friends. This mental health issue, as you said, it's okay to talk, let your friends know that you're not okay. The other things that I can see here, our Chinese friends, Yuan, he started with the problem issues before I know
Yeah.
that he suffered the isolation, completely cutting off from the family
Yeah.
tie, because there's a stigma or culture issue.
Mm-hmm.
Chinese society is less acceptance for the gay or lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
So from the saving face point of view, they want to their kids to
Yeah.
be a normal. Normal means you marry a wife or husband. So that is a society. I think China right now is good. It's open up.
It's opening
People
up
can see.
slightly. There is still stigmas attached.
But there's no legal.
So
Still, there's no legal
not
document
yet.
saying that you are legal civil partners, like here, like in the UK.
And they still class it as illegal to be living as a gay partner in,
and then people
in China.
still chatting, and then the parents, like I have a few friends whose son is like to make up, like to making, to become a girl, and then the parents, friends, they gossiping about because the husband's like the father is a successful business, like a realistic like chairman, so that's why the friends saying that look at this. He looks his business, but his son is doing this and doing this. He is a gay. So people still badmouth about that, so which should be stopped. You need to accept who they are.
But we're not going to. So I don't believe we can change society ourselves. It is a combined effort to, within your community, your group, your friends, to influence in a positive manner. So, for example, for all the connections I have, I encourage that we do a mind and sleep assessment, so that it encourages people to actually just talk to somebody different for the first time ever in their lives. I'm involved in a lot of entrepreneurial organizations where we sit as a group once a month and we discuss family, business, and personal. And we have to put in positives and negatives, and it's an open discussion within a group of people we all trust. So it's a secure environment for everybody. So you feel that you can say anything, you will not be judged. Nobody will ever tell you what to do, and you feel safe and secure. I think we need to create more of this.
Absolutely, that's for business words. But Chris, don't take me wrong. What I'm trying to say is as a parent, as a family, I'm talking about them.
You can do this the same, can't you, within family? Don't you feel that families can start to create this, to take that?
Exactly. Yeah. Family should create this safe environment for the family members, no matter who they are. Yeah. No matter whether they are gay or they are bi, or they don't having a good job, they don't having a good university. So the parents and the family should, like you say, business.
I agree,
work,
but I think sometimes it depends on who is the patriarch or the matriarch of that family. If there's a matriarch, I find that there's far more tolerance and an opening up. But if it's a patriarch, a male, as the head of the family, it's quite stern. It's like, that can't be accepted, and you are my son or you are my daughter.
But the consequence is that you lose your son forever.
I know, I totally agree, but we have to encourage. Also, the biggest problem you have in China is that whomever is the head of the family cannot be questioned in general. So even if you're talking to your parents and you have a 14, 15-year-old daughter or son that you are starting to understand is possibly gay, you can have that conversation with your daughter or your son because you're open-minded, but you are still stressed about how you're going to tell your parents and how they're going to approach it. I think we need to find a way of communicating better with the patriarchs and the matriarchs to say, this is your grandchild. You need to accept this. It's a different world we're living in now, and we've suppressed this for so long. It's always been there. You go back to Victorian times.
Oh, yes.
It's not something new. This is not a pandemic. It's not an endemic. It's not a mental health issues. It's people have always been slightly different, and so we need to be more accepting and understanding of people's needs.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm so sorry that you brought this news for this interview. That's not our plans, but it's good. It's perfect example. We talk about this is real case. It's our friends. I mean, coming from the East, blend in the West, in the different marriage formats, ended up killed himself. That's so sad.
It's sad as well because Digby is English, very traditional old English guy who had to go through his own struggles to come out. But I think he was in his 50s when he admitted that he was gay. He'd gone through his whole life,
have a family,
being married, exactly. Yue from a very young age knew he was gay and just had to escape the confines of being gay in China. So they both had their own struggles from a different direction, and I always thought that they were probably strong enough because they both come from that there was no issues. But obviously I misjudged. I was close to them. I talked about a lot of things, but I really didn't appreciate how bad things had got for them. So, and again, in hindsight, I should have seen the signs. In hindsight, maybe I could have done more. It was a tough six months afterwards, because you always feel you could have done more. It's now a while, so I've come to terms with it a lot better. But what these things also do is they make people around them feel guilty because they think, oh my God, what could I have done different? What could I have done more to have helped that person? Because we don't look for we think everybody's as strong as ourselves, and not everybody is. I mean, so always look for the signs. Try and see if everybody's okay around you. Vulnerability. We talk about vulnerability all the time now, and yes, people think that sending their children over to the UK to get an education here and whatever, that they're quite strong and whatever. But it's vulnerable. There's a lot of vulnerability there as well, and I think we take that for granted. What it's like for a kid to grow up being educated in a totally different system. So again, I think we need to start looking at vulnerabilities.
You can tell me about that as an immigration, as you know what I've been through. It's tough. So Chris, what is your experience when you do business in China? Like you spending donkey years, right?
Yeah, donkey's years.
In Shanghai.
I
as a businessman.
I first went to China in 1997, and I was part of a corporate group developing engineering technologies to help the Chinese foundry industry, especially automotive, grow and develop. It was, for me, an amazing time to go there, especially being supported by corporate. You're on expenses. But it was strange. When I first went there, in Shanghai, there was only 2 hotels that we could stay in.
Seriously, in 1997?
Yes. It was just at the end where we had our own money in China. Yeah. So, and there was only certain taxis that could take foreigners to places. You always felt that you were being watched.
Did you?
Yes, it was strange. However, it was at that time. You still realized you were part of a very evolving situation in the late 90s. China was on the crest of a wave. It was opening up. Everything that was started by Deng Xiaoping seemed to be flourishing. And really, you could feel it. It was very vibrant. You could see the changes going on. So for me, going there as a corporate was wonderful. However, my corporate got it all wrong with how to develop a strategy for China.
So you get fired?
Yeah, basically, what it was is I was telling them that they needed to change things.
They didn't want to hear that.
They took some advice, but then they also didn't understand the dynamics of the people I reported to who had limited knowledge of China. So what happened is they were making the wrong decisions still. Plus, I felt that a lot of people that were going out to Asia from corporate backgrounds at that time were going out there for the wrong reasons. It wasn't just to develop business. They thought it was a playground. They thought it was good fun and they could do whatever they wanted to. So those that were based there, like myself and a lot of other people who were actually given a position to be 100% there, grasped China and grasped Asia developing. But I felt that the senior directors that were still based in UK or Germany or whatever at that time were just coming over for 4 days, 5 days at a time, just wanted to go out, enjoy themselves, enjoy the fact that Shanghai was booming at that time. So I just got to the point where I got very annoyed with them. They got annoyed with me. So at the end of I finished 2 years. The end of 1999, we had a very acrimonious
Dispute.
separation. Well, the other thing was that they.
So you're falling apart after.
So they basically, they got rid of me, but they had to give me a 12-month salary and 12 months of a company car.
Good for you.
Which was good.
Yeah.
So I went back to Shanghai. I just found a little house. An apartment there, which I loved. Plus, I'd met. I'd also met my girlfriend at that time. So,
lucky.
And I thought, let's give it a chance. So I went back to Shanghai with my money in my pocket, thinking, okay, what
Severance
can I do?
Payment.
What am I going to do? And I'd met a wonderful young man whose father was the general manager of the Shanghai Clock Factory. And I'm an engineer and I'm fascinated with clocks and watches and engineering in general. So I put my money into restarting the Shanghai Clock Factory. So our first development was developing old grandfather clocks. So we got a cabinet maker from Shandong province to make us these beautiful cabinets, and then we did all the engineering side of it, the clock parts, and we made 10 unique grandfather clocks. Because of all the tooling that we had to buy and everything else, this basically took up all of my annual salary. So I basically invested the whole thing, thinking I was onto a winner. But I misjudged two things. One is, at that time, I developed something I loved and I thought was beautiful, but the market for luxury products was going through a bit of a transition, early noughties. People weren't spending a lot of money on luxury items, especially non-branded luxury. Like a luxury item made in China at that time had no precedent. So for them to look at a grandfather clock made in China, although it was incredibly, the engineering on it, the craftsmanship was amazing, nobody was willing to pay the money.
Yes.
So I eventually put all the clocks in an auction, got about 25 cents on the dollar back, and decided, let's try something else. And at that time, I was working with a lot of people looking at financial markets.
Yeah.
And then I had an accident, ended up in hospital.
Oh dear.
And so luckily I thought I was fully insured medically. Yeah. And what happened was then I'm in hospital. My insurance didn't work because China had never seen health insurance. They didn't know how it worked. There was no private healthcare sector at that time. And so what happened in Huashan Hospital was they went, well, you've got to pay. So I'm like, well, I've got insurance. And so...
But there's no system linked
together. There was no
together.
system at all at that time.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, the people that came to see me in hospital were the CEOs and the executives of foreign businesses that I'd got to know while I was there, because it was a small
When
community.
you produce your watches.
Well, yeah, when we was producing
Yeah.
clocks, and the community was a small expatriate community at that
In
time.
Shanghai, yeah.
Shanghai expat community of permanent residents was less than 2,500, of which at any one time there would be, let's say, 1,000 that was migrating within the restaurants and bars that we all congregated in. So you knew quite a
You
few
knew
of them.
everybody there.
Well, you knew nearly everybody.
Yeah, small village,
So the
Elite,
the CEO of Disney, who was looking at Disney, Apple, of Airbus, all these guys came to see me in hospital and go, well, what would happen if this was us? You know, we have no support mechanism here. We have nothing to help us navigate the system. So that gave me the idea at that time to set up a company that would help people navigate the healthcare system in China and integrate, get all the insurers into China, and then help people buy better insurances.
When was that?
This was 2000.
Wow.
The only
25
problem
years
was there was no such thing as a insurance brokerage at that time. So
In China?
In China.
No.
And it was, ironically, at that time, FESCO, who's the state body for HR,
foreign
so
employees.
everybody had to be employed through FESCO at that time, were looking to set up a health insurance brokerage and whatever, and they were looking for expertise and advice. So I ended up going to Beijing for a while and working with them to explain who the biggest insurers were on health, how to gain access to their products, and how then to become a brokerage. So that developed in them and us helping them come into China and try and get licensed as insurance companies themselves, because at that time,
FESCO.
so FESCO
Becoming insurance agency.
well, they became the first ever licensed brokerage in China.
Okay.
So they got the first license.
Yeah, because
And
of you.
Because of the influence and knowledge base that I brought to them. I mean, obviously they got it because they're connected to the government.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is...
But the idea is from you.
Yeah. And then I looked at like, well, I need to do this for myself.
Okay.
So I then looked at how I could become a broker, how I could become licensed. And I met two Chinese people I'd got to know in Beijing very well, that helped me gain our own first ever brokerage license. So behind
That's a breakthrough, though.
So as a brokerage, we were the second, really, I think we were the second or third behind FESCO to get a full license. The company was called Panoramic Insurance Brokerage Beijing Limited at that time. And we started on a journey of trying to develop the market. Quite interestingly, our first client base were the international schools and obviously foreign businesses that were starting up in China. So the Apples, all these companies who decided that they wanted to pay for their local insurances in RMB. So and then it just exploded, because once everybody realized there was a big market, and China, don't forget, is on the crest of a wave. So suddenly all these huge big Chinese companies were expanding to becoming brokers. So even the big state-owned companies, they would then, somebody whose brother would set up a local brokerage just to do the insurances for those companies, because there was commission involved. So it'd be, I could place a business with my brother because he's now set up this brokerage. He gets the commission, and then so the whole ethos and the way that China developed started to be around, again, connectivity. So who knew whom, who was going to set up brokerages and whatever. So while we were still focusing on just the foreign entities, what was happening is the biggest growth in insurance sales was going through brokers, small little brokers that were set up as being, because they had family that were the general manager of state businesses and everything else. So what it helped me understand at that time is the importance of being connected. You cannot do anything in China unless you have connectivity, unless you know somebody that can help you make sure that you're compliant. got the right licenses, have the connections with the banks and everything else, because it's a multifaceted business in China. I mean, if you look at when Motorola, when Nokia, when all these big companies came into China, they had to have a legal representative who was and it was generally a family member of somebody within the Politburo, so that they had that connectivity into government.
Yeah.
And you couldn't start a business in China, whether you were Caterpillar, Ford, whomever you were, you had to have a local as your legal representative. You could not do it purely as a foreign-owned business. It's obviously changed now, but at that time that was quite interesting.
Oh yeah, back to early 20s is a hugely connectivities related, if you run any business in China, even for major bigger corporations, you all need someone to dealing with the
anybody
PR.
Through the 90s, the early noughties, if you did not have a legal representative that was connected, you were destined for failure, or you were destined not to get the right license to operate, the right property to be able to be in. There's lots of stories of large corporates that just fell foul of not having the right connectivity, so basically hit brick walls,
getting the wrong side.
So once you got the wrong side of the Chinese government, you were in trouble. It took you a lot to get out of a mess.
Right, as you say, that's the first business, a failure business about grandfather watches. That is hilarious. You know why? From my perspective, I'm a business Chinese woman. I understand that you put all your investment there without aware of the cultural issue, because China, back to late 90s, people there looking for luxury. So grandfather, as a British, the antique, the old style is cherished. It is the most important, valuable item in your house. But in China, everything we have is from grandfather. Darling, we don't want a grandfather anymore. We want a young.
It was interesting. I suddenly realised that they were more interested in IKEA. So everybody wants everything brand new.
Brand new,
everything
IKEA
in China. Nobody wants second hand. Nobody wants antiques, or very few.
Still now, can you believe it? Still, people right now they still want to prefer the modern design. They don't want the old wood stuff. They don't want the old design of the jewelry. So it's still now, okay? So people listen to this. I mean, need to aware that's this is a culture appreciation.
Everything
in
is
different
about
market.
what is the next new thing. So it's the same with coffee. Coffee, when I first, you couldn't. The only coffee you could get in China when I went was the Nestle or was the coffee with the powder and everything into a tube, and you put it into hot water. That was all you could get.
Instant coffee. That's
so. And now you look at the coffee culture in China. It's amazing. I mean,
it's changing a lot for the past 20 or 30 years. So what is the lessons? What other lessons for you? Did you get you for this broker insurance companies?
I mean, the lessons for me were more about
creativity. Connectivity is one thing.
Connectivity is great, but again, you could be very well connected, but if the partners aren't aligned with your vision and aren't aligned with what you're trying to achieve, then you'll also find it very difficult.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, as a brokerage at that time, I could only own 24.9%. So
24.9. That's
that was the legal.
So that means you're not majority shareholder.
So
you have to
although
have a
it was
local
my
Chinese.
idea, so my local Chinese partners had 75.1%.
Oops.
And also they had to control all the banking and finance.
Okay.
So therefore,
I probably know the answer now.
Yes. So it was. So as I saw us developing, what I didn't have the time, because you're so blinkered in wanting to focus on your vision that I failed to see what was going on behind the scenes. And behind the scenes was that all the profitability was being eaten up by buy different things, such as offices we didn't need, business travel that I wasn't taking that others were taking, all sorts of different things, because I didn't have my finger on the pulse of what my Chinese partners were deemed as reasonable and customary to do as a developing business. For any entrepreneurial or startup business, the money has to be retained in the business. You have to invest, you have to grow. It's all about the people. So people, product, profit. This is how you develop a business. But at that time, my Chinese partners looked at it as profit, use, then the product, then the people. So it was so we didn't align, and I didn't sit down with them enough when we started the business to align responsibilities and whom could do what. And that was a big mistake. So we developed the business incredibly well. I think we're up to 30 million in premium with some big international schools across Beijing, Shanghai, into Hangzhou, Nanjing, all the eastern areas we were involved, and everything was looking good. But then when I looked at the profitability,
where the money gone?
The money was not there, and it was very difficult. Plus,
oh dear,
in coming up to 2010 with the World Expo coming up, in early 2008, we started to look at doing a project with PICC.
Mm-hmm. PICC, by the way, is the biggest
people's insurance company China. Mm-hmm. So it's the biggest insurance company in China at that time, and they predominantly were life-based and commercial liability-based, and they wanted to get into the health business. So with the World Expo coming to Shanghai, I worked with their international division to try and develop a specialized product for foreigners coming into China for the World Expo, to create a product for the World Expo.
Yeah.
For that 1 year, anybody who was working on World Expo would be fully covered locally for health and link into Huashan Hospital, the best Chinese hospital in Shanghai at the time, and work around that system. So we had to get a partner. So we brought in a specialized health insurer out of France who wanted to work with PICC. And what my Chinese partners didn't realize is that they thought just flying over to Paris, having one meeting, this would all be all good. Once that partner decided to invest in us to help this project work, that you have to have total openness about where the money is being spent and everything else. My Chinese partners didn't understand that about international business, so wouldn't give information out. So eventually the whole thing fell apart. It was a great opportunity. It could have taken what we'd created to the next level. We could have been probably the most prominent specialized health insurance broker in China at that time. However, we had French partners not happy, me not happy. So before the World Expo actually happened, the whole thing fell apart. So the Chinese basically said that was debts of the company. They would take on the debts if we all handed over our shares. So we basically gave them the company.
Oh.
So that was in end of 2009.
That's a painful story.
It's a painful lesson, but all the best lessons in life are quite painful, as you know, especially financially. What was interesting at that time is Maurice Greenberg was also being entertained by the Chinese government to help them develop more strategic insurance platforms across China. And he'd set up a brokerage in Shanghai. And so that brokerage he needed to walk away from the brokerage to work with the Chinese government. And so I decided to, with walking away from PIBB, to work with this brokerage and help them develop a strategic health section. And again, this was a really great, I thought, a great vision. They had access to large companies, Chinese companies, about selling, and they were selling mainly commercial liability insurances. We were going to try and do a lot on the health, and it started to work really well as a relationship. But the moment we started to build a health insurance portfolio, the company valuation just started to shoot through the roof, because suddenly everybody was now all about, in China 2011, 2012, everything started to get really important to the Chinese health. Cancer was a big issue and growing.
It's growing bigger now.
Insuring against that was getting bigger. So suddenly a company came in, a local Chinese company, and brought the brokerage. And although I'd helped them develop that, my shareholding was minimal, and again I had to.
You've been screwed up again.
So again, it was sold from under me. But it was interesting at that time that I'd set up specifically a Hong Kong company that was called Healthwell, and Healthwell had always owned all my shares in all these companies, and so a very successful, huge Chinese brokerage said to me, look, under your own, get your brother-in-law to set up a company with these. This is what they need a license, and we'll authorize you as an agent to this, just purely doing health. So you own the clients, you own the business. So that's how all those clients at that time wished to then stay looked after by us, then moved over to that. And that company is still there in Shanghai. We still have a business there. It's not developing much because there's huge domestic market. There's huge, but what it does, it still looks at. So I can still satellite manage that with my brother-in-law in China. So we still have a brokerage that we can which looks after clients there, only on health. And what I've done since is just specialize in being here to develop markets that, so we can look after, because now huge amount of Chinese are in America, Europe, UK.
Yeah, obviously Chinese.
So what I've learned is I've understood what Chinese people need, rather than selling to foreigners in China. I'm now selling to Chinese who are traveling and working overseas or living overseas. So it's changed.
So your lessons learned that
the lessons I've learned
become an expert.
So understanding Chinese, which again is, the culture is very different. The way that somebody purchases something in China is very different to the way a foreigner will purchase something. Also, don't forget, the Chinese were brought up without a base understanding of insurance. Insurance is not, so when you had a house in Changsha, for example, 30, 40 years ago,
we don't need the insurance.
You don't buy insurance.
Well, we don't even buy insurance now.
Yeah.
For house insurance. Except that I go for international house insurance.
Yeah.
Local, no.
Well, it's interesting. Some do, because what is covered under house insurance in China is IE insurance. So it covers, so you can cover
IE insurance is there.
Yeah.
IE means like a help.
Yeah,
like a domestic help.
The domestic help. So if you've got,
but that's different from house insurance.
I know. No, it's covered under house insurance. In China, if you buy house insurance, you automatically get coverage for your IE.
IE means
your domestic help. So your cleaner, your baby minder, whatever. In China,
but that's not common. Still not common for Chinese to buy in the
property
insurance.
It's growing.
It's growing. Yeah, I can see it's growing.
But the market is all about covering specific issues. So life is big, huge in China. Cancer insurance. The problem is the products that are being developed, I don't think they're being sold as covering you for cancer, but in my eyes, they're not great products. They are cheap and cheerful products for a developing market, but they don't really, the market will change as people get more and more understanding of how insurances work and what value for money is. I think those products will have to change. They're just they're not as valuable as you think they are.
No, that's the part of like the Chinese insurance policy need to improve. But back in talk to you, so what you have learned like in China, that the license you learn, that make you a special niche now, because you truly understand that's the Chinese consumers, what they need and the way that they need the insurance. Then you set up your company in the UK, right?
I think that the most important lesson I learned in China is, first and foremost, one, you have to understand the history. You have to understand the language. If you don't understand the language and you are not capable of understanding the way that Chinese speak, even when they're speaking to you in English, the brain is translating what they are trying to say in Chinese, so it will come over differently. It will be thought out differently. So when you're having a conversation about anything with a Chinese person, that conversation will be very different to you having a conversation with a Brit or an Australian or a South African or an American. Now, as a British person, and a lot of Brits fall into this category as well, is when you're speaking to an Australian or a South African, you immediately know, although you're speaking English, you immediately know they come from a different place, they'll have a different accent, and they will think differently. You just accept it. When an English person is talking to an Asian person and that Asian person is talking to them in English, they just assume that it's going to be like talking to an Australian or talking to an American, and it's totally different. And even within Asia, the cultures between China, Korea, Japan, Thailand, Taiwan, they're different. And you have to understand that these cultures are heavily ingrained in their traditions. And if you don't understand that, it's going to be very difficult to do business.
For life and for business, the same thing.
Absolutely.
Can you give out an example? Just one simple example you think about this. I give you my example, okay? When I talk to my husband, and then when I about to say something or in the middle of say something, he just say, I know what to do. So is that an issue for Americans or for British people? If you talk to your husband, they say, I know what to do.
Yeah, well,
would they offend?
Well, yes, I think it's quite, yes, it would do. And I think this is a very strong lesson. The thing is because we think that the Chinese doesn't have any, how can I say, because it wasn't part of your education background, because it's not, you don't have a knowledge base. Say, for example, we're talking about music in the West. So we're talking about, let's say, I don't know, the Beatles, right?
Shows your age now.
I know. I should have. I should have said Coldplay, shouldn't I? But anyway, the Beatles. We're talking about music now. You have a very different traditional background on music, and the thing is, you start to have a communication with a Chinese person. Oh, I love Coldplay, but they've only heard one song. The thing is, we try, for whatever reason, I think it's in our DNA, that we think that we have to give you a lesson on who Coldplay is and where they're from. But we don't allow you to learn that yourself. Go, okay, why don't you go to Spotify and look at all and listen to all Coldplay. And then why don't you, instead of giving you advice, we're trying to tell you. And this frustrates a lot of Chinese because they go,
especially those smart Chinese.
Well, yeah, exactly, because you immediately think that we're downgrading you and we're making you feel that you're stupid, right? Now, we do this unconsciously, and you have to be careful. One lesson I would say to anybody is, don't talk to a Chinese person where they may think you're talking down to them. And sometimes the way we speak and the way we talk about our experiences is very different. And we're trying to impart our experience on a Chinese person without thinking, actually, it sounds like we're talking down to you. And so that is one lesson I've learned, is be careful how you tone a conversation and the way that you speak to somebody, because they will be hearing it very different. And don't forget, when they're hearing English, their brain's translating it into Chinese, because it is English, however good their English is. And I know a lot of Chinese that have amazing English. In fact, some Chinese speak better English than me. However, that doesn't mean that their brain was educated from a young age as English. So again, it's about understanding that difference, that it doesn't matter how well they speak English, they weren't educated through our system, and they weren't educated in general with the history that we grew up with, like as our youngest memories will be associated with music or with different things.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, it's so different. You're right. Yeah. So for business advice, you say that's like a nowadays when you talk about the stories, your business like up and downs back to late 90s and early 20s. Now you look like a 25. I know it's 20 years later. I mean, what is your, but you still having an office in Shanghai, so you still have a link there. So what is your advice for like a northern, see, that's the English part. What's your advice for the Westerners doing business in China now?
Well, if it's somebody that is going out there for the first time, China has changed drastically over the last 30 years. So, I mean, it's 28 years since I first went to China. China is a totally different platform. It is incredibly dynamic. It is incredibly modern. The hardware is very different to the software. So the hardware, you'll think you're going into New York. You'll think you're going into some of the most modern cities on the planet, which you are.
Yeah, that technology
but
as well.
You have to remember the people are struggling to keep up with that fast pace of life and how it's all changed. So a lot of people you'll be talking to, especially in industries you want to get involved in, may have a more traditional mind than what you're seeing in the structures, and so they may be still catching up themselves with the way that China's developed. So don't expect them to be, because you're in New York, to be as aware culturally of what it's like to live in a super highway and what it's like to live at 100 miles an hour with a city that's all electric and with total connectivity. A lot are still trying to grasp this. So again, understand that.
Okay, that's very useful. Basically, China is changing. China is modern and full of technologies. It looks like a modern city, but inside, like we can take an example, like you drive in the highway. So the road facilities, you can drive 160 miles, whatever. But there's in the highway, it's not all Ferraris there. There's still like a kind of a Geely trying to find out the slowest lane to get into the middle lanes. Is that this is
if you're going to do car analogies, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, you go to Shanghai, you will see your Bentleys, your Ferraris,
best of
your
cars
Porsche,
ever, yeah. But still there's
because there was a surge in wealth, but behind that facade, most people are driving Volkswagens. Most people are still trying to lead a normal life. Most people, we've got families that have started their own businesses in the last 20 years that rode the crest of the wave. Being Chinese in China, having a great idea to ride that crest of the wave, there was an opportunity to earn a lot of money. It doesn't mean that you totally grasp Western culture and you understand how everything works around the world. You just have become wealthy providing a service within China. So a lot of people you will connect with going to do business in China will still be learning. So accept this. Just be gracious about the way that they won't have your depth of knowledge about doing business on a global footprint. They won't have a lot of tools that you were given growing up. They are learning these tools. They're trying to gain these tools. So it's a different mindset and culture. The way they entertain is incredibly different. So if you're British, we're about a pub culture. They don't have, in China you don't have a pub or a bar culture as such. The bar culture is young people going out in a totally different way.
But not doing business, yeah.
Not doing business. Traditionally in the UK, business was done in a pub, talking after work and socializing. Doing business in China, you don't have to be somebody's best friend to do business with them. Whereas in the West, we try to make friends with people we're trying to do business with. There's different cultural nuances that you need to get used to.
I thought it's the difference. Like in Western, you don't need to be a friend, you can do business. But China, you need to make a friend first, and then you do business.
I think as business partners, I think is different to selling. Again, this is an area where I am still learning a lot as well in regard to most of my client base are people I've got to know well. And it develops through networks and friends and connectivity.
But you learn this from Chinese.
But my Chinese clients have to come through a Chinese connection.
Yeah.
Chinese trust Chinese.
Yes.
Chinese don't tend to trust outsiders, and it's still like that. It's still like that. Beijing run, Shanghai run.
Yeah, it's still like that. It's called in groups. Yeah, yes, different groups. Yeah.
And it's very actually parts of Europe are like this, where the country only became a true country in the last, let's say, 100 years, where provinces still believe they're their own little country. And China's a little bit like this. So you can go to go out to the West. They're very different to Shanghainese. They're very different to Beijingese.
Yeah.
And there's still a mistrust of people they don't know.
Yes.
Even if you're Chinese. So again.
But there's similarities in the UK as well. Like a business in your words, become a friends, develop the networkings, right?
Well, again, if you're going to Birmingham to develop a business, you have to have an in somewhere.
There,
you can't just turn up and go, "Hey, I'm opening an office here." You have to have a reason. So
just there are all similarities in different degree, like from different culture. But so what you're saying is very insightful. Like you learned those all from your lessons you learned.
Life lessons,
and then but I'm glad that's like you learn that truly inside out, and then you can provide just 100%, so like a best professional service for Chinese now. But my last question is that your service only for Chinese or international?
No. I mean, most of my client base growth these days has been European business, whether it be British that are looking for a better solution than what is locally here. In the UK, we have 4 major providers of health insurance. In my opinion, those products are not good enough these days. The other thing that I've realized, and also which we touched on earlier with Chinese, the importance of screening. So what we've developed over the last few years now is everything has to be about keeping well. Nobody dies from stage 1 cancer anymore, but you have to catch these things early. And unless you're doing health screening on an annual basis and a good quality screening, by the time you find out you've got something wrong, sometimes it's too late, or it's not too late, but the treatment is horrific.
Yeah. It's
And,
very
there's no
intruding,
guarantee, and it's very intrusive,
disruptive, right?
and it's long and it's painful.
I know.
We, through screening programs we've helped develop and we've embedded in insurance products now, what we're doing, we're finding problems early. So we've this year alone, we've had 2 or 3 cancer cases caught really early, where people have found it, we've had it treated, and are back to work within 4 weeks, playing golf within 6 weeks, doing normal life things. And because they've caught it so early, these things don't manifest themselves into big problems.
Yes.
And so what our vision is that we can allow people, and especially Chinese, to get early access to screening programs. And I think the most important thing for anybody is having a cost-effective way of looking at your health and what it means for you. And the other thing that's important, if you look at all the medical research on the big pharma, if you look at cancer treatments and everything, historically, most of the research has been done on white ethnicity, male and female. Okay. Very little research until around about 20 has been looked at for black people, Asian people, and all these things.
Yeah.
The minority groups, and also taking into differentials, not just gender at birth, but gender they deem themselves. So because their bodies, people's bodies are different and react differently to things. So what we've done is embedded a lot of work that's been done to help people understand whether you're white, pink, green, black, Asian, male, female, whatever, to understand what are your risk factors of getting cancer and cardiovascular, and also general health. What things need to be done over a period of time to make sure that you have longevity, to make sure you're living a pain-free, happy life. Because the most important thing that drives our bodies is what we put into our body. So if we're not eating well, if we're drinking too much, if we're still smoking, these are things
that's also bad for your health. Yes, as you say, that people really need to be cautious about like their health, not just physical, also mentally. Like when we start this show talking about like when you have a mental issues, when you have any issues, go for your friends, professionals, and the preventers, and then you can having an easy process to get healed, right? Yeah.
Well, what I would say is part of whatever if you're going to go down a route of looking at your health and your well-being, you have to include 4 major things. One is your mental health, your stomach health, your heart health, and your liver health. If you look after those 4 things,
then you can live 100 years old.
Well, definitely till 90. Unfortunately, it's very well documented now that the cell degeneration at 90 is pretty spectacular. And so anybody that starts living to 100, 100 plus, they've slowed somehow that cell degeneration. But most of us, what we want to do is live till we're 90, happy, healthy, still active, and then what happens after is no major issue whatsoever.
That's beautiful stage. Thank you for sharing with us your real experience when you do business in China, and also bringing us idea that's what we can get your service from here. And then thank you for all of those insights.
Good luck to anybody that's going out to try and develop business in China, or to anybody who's coming into the UK from China. Know that there's a good community of Chinese here, and most of us understand the challenges you're going to face.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.